What's up guys and girls, welcome back to another video. Now today's video is focused on tyre pressure because there is often a lot of confusion around this subject. Now whether you are a roadie, a gravel rider, a mountain bike rider, this video is for you. Now I'm going to show you a tool that allows you to work out what tyre pressure you should have. It gives you a ballpark figure. Now after we've gone through the tool, I will then look at all the factors that affect tyre pressure, and that is going to empower you to actually make an informed decision and make a decision based on your needs. So first things first, let's open the website, which is going to allow us to put our variables in and it is going to pump out a tyre pressure. So this tool is from SRAM. The website is axs.sram.com, guides tyres. I will leave a link down below in the description so you can get to it nice and quick. But you will see in here there are lots of different factors that affect tyre pressure, which is what I'll explain after. So for example, we have rider weight is going to affect it. We have ride style, for example. So let's just pop some numbers in here. So let's go 81. Ride style, we can choose whatever bike style we want. So I'm just going to go road for now. Bike weight, I'm going to say the bike weight is about 9 kilos, I believe. Let's go 9. Wheel diameter, so again, different size wheels. We've got front tyre width. So the width of the tyre is quite important. So in this one, both of my tyres are 25 on my road bike, for example. So the inner rim width as well also makes a difference. I believe mine is 17. Again, I will be explaining about all of these later in the video. So stay tuned to actually make heads and tails of what these actually mean. Front tyre casing, standard. I'm just going to go rear tyre casing, standard. Rim type, tubes. So I have tubes in my tyres. And the surface is dry or wet. Dry or wet is also going to affect it, more on that later. So let's just go dry for now, and I'm going to click calculate. We've got bar here, so I'm just going to come up to the top and change this to PSI. I work in PSI, so let's calculate that. So saying the front tire is 85 PSI and the rear tire is 94 PSI. So you can see straight away it gives you a rough indication of what your tire pressure should be. You literally put all your info into the tool and it throws you out a number based on your specific factors. So that is a tool, very simple, but what I'm going to do is go into a little bit more detail. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is the min and max PSI on your actual tire. Now, every single tire will have a max PSI, which you cannot inflate more than, or a minimum PSI, which you cannot run the tire less than. So on my GP 5000, for example, it is 8.5 bar max, which is 123 PSI. So bear that in mind. This tool is going to pump out numbers, but your tire does also have its limitations. So that should always be adhered to. Next up is a track pump. Now this is the single best tool probably that every cyclist should buy, because if you don't have one, you pretty much can't tell your tire pressure and it is hard to pump your tires up, especially if you're going up to a high PSI like a road bike tire, for example. So you want to get your hands on a track pump. I literally bought mine for £15 off eBay, which was an absolute bargain. I believe they're around £20–30 online. So if you can get your hands on one, because you'll need it. I check my tires once every 2 rides or so, sometimes every ride depending on time between rides. Next up is grip. Now the tires are your only connection with the ground, your one connection, so you want to have as much grip as possible, and tire pressure comes into that massively. So let me explain. The way your tire can deform is going to change the amount of tire that's actually on the surface of the road or gravel or wherever you're riding. So if you have a lower pressure, your tire can deform better, which means there is more contact with the actual surface, so you can get more grip. The higher the pressure of the tire, the less it can actually deform, so the less contact patch there is with the surface. So if you look at that in its simplest form, the lower the PSI, the more grip. It's not that simple, so we need to move on to dry versus wet, for example. Now, obviously, the wetter conditions, you're going to get less grip. Dry conditions, the better the grip. So this is actually going to vary the PSI that you should have in your tires. Now, I don't necessarily change my tires depending on the weather, but after doing this video and the research, then I think I probably will. I also don't ride too much in the rain, but we won't talk much about that. But let's look at the tool, and we will see at the bottom we have this dry versus wet, this drop down. So it's currently on dry and we're set up for a road bike. So what I'm going to do is just change that to wet, for example, and just calculate again. And you can see just how much it drops. So again, dry, what we're on 85 and 90, and wet is 76 and 81. It's a massive, massive drop, people. And what this is going to allow you to do is get more grip in wet conditions. So drop your tire pressure slightly if it is wet. Now, to add to the equation, we have comfort versus speed as well. Now, for a long time, it was considered that the harder the tire, the faster it would roll. Now, that is true. If you had a perfectly flat surface and a really hard tire, it would roll better than if the tire was a lower pressure. So perfect surface, hard tire, really good rolling resistance. However, in reality, when we are out on the roads or gravel or trails, it is not smooth. So what that means is a hard tire is actually uncomfortable because you're going over bumps. It's going to give you a lot of vibrations through your bars. So because you get all those vibrations, you're not comfortable, you slow down. So what that means is if you reduce your tire pressure, you actually improve your comfort, and because you're more comfortable, you can actually ride faster. So there is a fine correlation between how hard your tire is and the comfort of your ride. So that is something that you have to balance. That is not something that can be calculated. That is personal to you. So comfort versus speed is another thing to add to the equation with tire pressure. Now, grip, dry versus wet weather, comfort, etc., they are all related to how the tyre can deform, which is what I explained earlier in the video. But what also is relevant to how the tyre can deform is your body weight. For example, someone who is 50 kilos compared to someone who is 100 kilos is going to have a very, very different story in terms of the pressure required for that tyre to deform and be comfortable for the individual rider. So let's pop into the app and we will put that to the test. So at the minute we're set up as road bike, and what I want to do is I've got my weight here. What I'm going to do is change the weight to 60 kilos. So let's put 60 kilos, and the bike weight is 9, so we're 69 in total, and we're set up for roads. Let's go there and we'll go dry conditions. Let's calculate. So we've got 75 and 80 PSI for a 60 kilogram rider on a 9 kilogram bike. So let's change that up to a 100 kilogram rider, and we've got currently 75 and 80, and let's calculate. We've got 93 and 99. So what does that mean? It means your body weight matters and the bike weight matters. It also means that when you talk to other people about what tire pressures they're running, it is specific to them. Because if you are much heavier or much lighter, then what they're running is not relevant to you. So do bear that in mind. Again, nice and handy to have the tool so you can just check that out quickly and work out what is best for your body weight and your bike weight combined. I want to also quickly talk about tire width and rim width. And what I'm going to do is open up the app again, and I'm just going to look at the different types of tire width, the rim width, and how that actually affects the tire pressure. So for example, let's straight away go to change this back to 80 kilos, which is roughly what I am. And I'm going to change this to 28mm tires. So instead of 25, let's go to 28. Calculate, and we've got 72 and 76 PSI. Now, if we go down to 25, for example, so we can see the comparison and calculate, we've got 84 and 90. So 2mm difference in rim width means you can drop your tire pressures quite considerably. So again, that's another factor. Now, what I want to do is actually show you as well. Let's change this to gravel, because on my gravel bike I have 38mm tires. So let's pop that up to 38mm and pop that there. And inner rim width, let's change the inner rim width to 21. That's the actual width of your rim. Now that's going to vary depending on what rims you have. So let's calculate that, and we've got 42 and 45 PSI. So you can see the difference is actually massive, which is one thing that I actually realized when I got my gravel bike, the difference in pressures. Also, you're going over more bumpy ground on your gravel bike, so you want the pressures to be lower to absorb more of those bumps. Now, I couldn't do a video on tire pressures without talking about tubed versus tubeless. Now, if you're not familiar, normally we have a butyl tube in the tires, which is an actual inner tube. But the modern way is tubeless, and this is where you remove the tube, you have a better seal, and you fill the tyre with sealant. Not only does this give you better puncture resistance, but you can also run your tyres at a lower pressure for the exact same performance. Now what that means is you can run your tyre lower, it's more comfortable. So tubeless is the way to go. I don't currently have it. I am going to be hopefully getting some tubeless wheels in the near future, and I'll be doing videos on that, so subscribe if you do want to see. But it's worth noting again, tubeless versus tubed is going to have different results. And the one dreaded thing that we all have with tyres is getting punctures. Now, tubeless is obviously going to help with puncture resistance because basically they self-seal if you do get a puncture. However, the actual tyre that you choose is going to affect how many punctures you do get. Now, I use GP 5000 tyres. I've done a review on those tyres. I use them for nearly 7,000 miles, and only then did I start getting punctures. So the type of tyre you have is going to affect the puncture resistance mainly. It's less related to the pressure. Having said that, if your tyre pressure is low, you can get pinch flats. This is where if your tyre pressures are too low and you go over a pothole, the actual tyre can compress too much, which is going to like pinch the tube, kind of like an impact on the tube, and that will cause a puncture. Now, there is a lot of information there, a lot of things that affect tyre pressure, but I want to end the video by saying, go for a ride with different tyre pressures and see how it feels. You cannot learn to swim online, and it is kind of like that. When I started riding, I was, maybe it should be this pressure, maybe it should be that pressure. And the reality is you've just got to go and ride, find out what pressures work for you in what conditions. So there you go, fine people. I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about tyre pressures, what affects tyre pressures, and what is potentially right for you. If you like the video, thumbs up would be much appreciated. It does help the video do well and channel grow. Subscribe if you want to see more content. And as always, until the next one, fine people, self-love and safe riding.